Hello and welcome to another episode of Parade's Concierge Desk. We here at Parade specialise in delivering class-defining event concierge service, and our North Star is to offer a frictionless experience for our clients and guests. Our obsession is with guest experience, and we're fascinated by other businesses and brands that use experience to build connection with their clients and customers. This is our opportunity for us to speak to others that feel about experience the same way we do, and to share some thoughts with our network. And with that in mind, I am very thrilled and excited to be joined today by Sandy Mitchell, the founder of Redbook Agency, a business which advises high net worth and ultra high net worth clients on luxury property projects. Sandy started his professional life as a barrister, then moved into media, both as a newspaper editor and a TV presenter, but his passion was and still is clearly in property projects and design. He founded Redbook in 2011, sold it in 2024, but remains very much involved in some of the firm's most significant projects. So Sandy, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us.
Andrew, it's a great pleasure and honour. Thank you.
Thank you. So first of all, Sandy, can you tell us a little bit about your fascinating professional journey?
Yeah, well, that I could take a long time talking about, because I've had a zigzag career, an exciting zigzag career, as you say, involving the law. I qualified as a barrister after studying at Oxford, and then went into investment banking, working in the city in Frankfurt. And one day I was sitting at my desk, and I happened to open the FT, and I saw an advert for junior sub-editor on a national magazine. And I, out of sort of moment of excitement, I faxed my CV across, as you did in those days, got the job, and a whole new world opened up to me. And scroll on some years, I got married. My wife and I bought a derelict house in the countryside, which was built over 800 years ago, but it was collapsed. And we restored it and made gardens, interior design and so on, built onto it. And the experience of that, the challenge of that, convinced me that there should be a nexus for advice and expertise and connections in the world that you need when you're doing a high-end property project. Who are the best architects, interior designers? Who do you meet first? The builder or the planning consultant or the local authority, etc. So that was the genesis of Redbook, which, as you say, I set up and ran for 15 years.
Amazing. So you founded the business to solve a problem that you knew existed because it was your problem. And how has the business developed, or how did the business develop from that kind of first idea into what it was, first of all, when you sold it, and then how's it kind of developed further since then?
Yeah, so it grew hugely, obviously, from the start. And over 15 years, we started with projects, probably, construction budgets, building budgets, sort of $500,000, maybe, you're building onto your house or something like that, or refurbishing something in London. And then, of course, now that the budgets are very much bigger, the biggest we're dealing with at the moment are sort of £100 million projects. Well, that's for private clients, and then for developers, we've done many times that. And it's grown from being a UK business to one that's around the world now, in Saudi Arabia, in France, in Ireland, America, and so on.
But the core idea has stayed the same. So has the main development been the kind of the size of the project and complexity, I suppose, of the projects?
Exactly, that's right, Andrew. And I think you're right. The core idea is really to give clients, be they private clients or commercial, the data and guidance that they need to generate from the inception of an idea of we're going to do this project to the final project, a clear route, a journey that they enjoy, that's with the best possible talent. There's so much choice out there, some amazing and some not so amazing. Yeah. And making sure it's the right team, and you're accelerating that journey for them and make it as pain-free as possible.
Amazing. And I guess that pain-free. So the next question is always around kind of how do you interpret guest experience. In our world, those guests are, guests at an event, and we're taking care of them, giving them an amazing experience through their journey.
Yeah.
That's the same, I suppose, for you. But what are the important elements of guest experience, or of experience, customer experience, that you use at Redbook?
Well, as you said in your kind intro, our clients are high net worth, ultra high net worth on the private client side. So we'll focus on them, as well as commercial ones, which perhaps is outside the scope of what we're talking about. They could be Hollywood actors, supermodels, royalty, globally known entrepreneurs. They have so much choice in their life about who they work with.
Mm-hmm.
And they are used to an extraordinarily high level of service very often. And in many cases, things are absolutely presented on a plate to them. So that's to impress them, we need to deliver the ultimate in white glove service. And we've thought very, very hard about how to do that. And I look forward to discussing that with you in this conversation. But I would add that it's not only about curating experience. I think, and I'm sure this is the same for your brand, in parallel, we think just as much about how to build trust with our clients. And that is the basis of the relationship. And it takes a huge amount of work and focus to do that.
It's really interesting, and these conversations are always really interesting because it shows that there are these incredible kind of similarities between what we do and what so many other people do. And in a previous life, I used to plan weddings. I don't do that anymore. I not because I don't want to, but just that's not where the business is now. And that was exactly the same. When someone was spending a lot of money, and the weddings we were planning were big, £1 million weddings. When someone was spending a lot of money on such an important day of their life, the most important thing was building that trust. And I guess that kind of definition of experience being linked so closely to building that trust, that's the key to maintaining your client relationships. That experience, that kind of trust, is that also something that you have to build with your partners as well as your clients?
Yeah. I mean, it absolutely is, and you need to ensure. Obviously, there's a big ecosystem of suppliers on a project. The top level, you've got the architects, the interior designers, and the planning consultants, and the project managers, and the builders, and all of those people. But then there were, I'm sure, with your events too, then there were layers of sub consultants as well. Everyone, the structural engineers and the mechanical consultants, and so on, and electrical. So I think, and we've really, as I'm talking about Redbook here, fairly recently actually, created a code of practice, for a written code of practice for all of our partners, as we call them, on the biggest projects we do. And we only use this code of practice for the biggest projects, and we only use those partners if they have signed up to the code of practice.
And that code of practice is designed to what?
It's designed primarily to create a sense of collaboration, that we're all pointing in the same direction from the outset. And in this particular case, it's about delivering projects particularly fast. We've developed a new service called Fast Track for the biggest projects there are in the private client world, and it cuts about a third off the project timeline. So, a 3-year project becomes a 2-year project. It's a massive time saving. But to achieve that, you have to have your wider team with this collaborative mindset rather than the contractual mindset where something goes wrong and before you know it, you've got a request for more money, or there's a legal issue or something like that. So that's collaboration is key to it. Agreeing that the drivers to the project are accelerating the timeline, making it go faster, without compromising the quality, and all of those things. So I think a written code of practice, and it's actually contractually based, is on a big multi-million-pound project is a really good baseline. Of course, if you have to refer to that, then you've lost the game. But it's about setting the mindset.
Sets out the store, and that code of that code of conduct is obviously kind of designed to ensure that your partners are working in the way that you want them to work. Do they also have contact with your clients and kind of have the opportunity, is probably the wrong word, is there a chance that something that they do could cause a blip in that customer experience for your clients?
Yeah, there is. I mean, in this scenario, we're talking about this is the sort of ultimate service, the fast track service. And we only offer that for 6 times a year to clients because it takes such care to get it absolutely right. And there is a chance thing goes wrong, that there is a blip, I guess, but we're very, very careful that doesn't happen, as I'm sure you are. They have contact with clients, to answer your question, but we act as what's called the client rep, the client representative.
Yeah.
So we are in the position of the client to direct, filter, make decisions, even on budgets up to a certain level, and choosing the team. So it's important that we have that control.
And when you're in front of the clients, I suppose for those, again, the focusing on the private clients, how the experience they have building the trust with that private individual or kind of number of stakeholders, how do you navigate that? Because I'm sure in many of the projects you work on, there are more than one stakeholder who have probably similar to a wedding again, so who have differing needs,
Yes.
and who may have a different opinion. How are you able to kind of balance that experience to make sure that it sings to them?
There were lots of layers, but I'll start by sharing one of my favorite proverbs. It's said to be a Russian proverb, which is, a man who has builders has no need of enemies, and which kind of speaks to the risks there are on building projects. I mean, we're all so familiar with cost overruns, and and the joke is you'll be in by Christmas, and the question is which Christmas.
Yeah.
So that's projects can be unpredictable because weather can stop things. I'm sure it can in your world too, but you end up with a building site that's a quagmire. How do you manage that risk, etc. I think there are lots of layers to risk management here, so that the client has a seamless experience. One of them is choosing your partners incredibly carefully. Having ideally worked with them for a number of years. Redbook works with a couple of hundred partners. So we have, as it were, client relationship managers. We have an annual review process, a very formal review process. So if a firm is contracted with us on our roster, we have external review by an advisory board who look at new applicants and the existing roster, and it's taken very, very seriously. And obviously we collate reports on performance throughout the year.
Yeah.
And if there's underperformance, that's the end of the game. So that choosing the partners is one part of it. And I think on a project we will have either client rep or what we call project guardian, which is a slightly lesser involvement. But it's you wouldn't believe the amount of interaction there is weekly with the stakeholders, as you put it, to make sure everything's kept on track and problems are foreseen.
Yeah. And so therefore the client reps that you have, are they technical people?
Yeah. Well, they're typically architects, yeah.
Right.
Who have quite a lot of experience. I mean, 15 plus years of professional experience, done really big projects. Yeah. And then they're monitored by the directors at the level above as well.
And I guess a huge part of an architect's job is to manage clients. So they must be well used to managing clients. The next part of that statement question is, how do you ensure, so the dealing with an ultra high net worth client is different to dealing with other types of clients. So for these particular projects, how do you ensure that the team that are client facing are able to manage that experience, build that and maintain that trust, and represent you as a business how you want to be represented in order to maintain your reputation?
It's a really interesting one. I think, you know, it goes back to the choice of who you're working with, and ensuring that they understand your expectations as the introducer, as the client rep, about their performance. And I guess there are so many little touch points along the way there before we would introduce a client to an architect or an interior designer or a builder, or whoever it might be, that if at any point we felt there was a divergence in expectation, it would go no further.
Yeah.
Before we ever introduce them. And then beyond that point, as I say, we're in such sort of regular engagement with them that the chances of something going haywire are hopefully very, very small.
And have you seen that there's kind of more of a focus from clients about ensuring that they have that right relationship, that they feel comfortable and kind of the trust, I think, is one thing, but also that kind of enjoyment really of the process and being in a relationship, temporary relationship with someone that they really like. Do you think has that always been like that, or do you think that's changed over the past kind of?
I mean, we did some research last year, and 75% of our clients have done big property projects before. These are design-led luxury projects. So this is not just putting up a shed, or this is creating an amazing home. And almost all of them have done one before. And I have never heard a client, 300 plus projects I've been involved in, I've never had a client express an expectation about the experience. So I think the answer to your question is no. Mm-hmm. I don't think there has been a change in that, but I think, you know, these are testing times in the UK, at least, for the luxury property world. And, you know, non-dom changes have an awful lot. You know, we've seen, what is it, 11,000 non-doms leave the country just this year, and more last year. And project costs have gone up by around 40% in the last 3 to 4 years. So what cost you, you know, 3 million, you know, 4 years ago is now costing you 1.4. So huge inflationary costs. So I think what this comes down to is that anyone who really understands client experience in our world as a consultant, as a supplier, as a professional, will thrive, and those that don't have much less chance. And I think it's very patchy, if I'm truthful, about what I see, the excellence in managing the client journey, as we call it, is not yet as much of a focus as you would expect in this, you know, elite world. Yeah. Some are just so good at it, they blow my socks off. I mean, there was a client, an interior design practice I worked with on a very big project in London. And not only did they do an incredible job, actually this was during the pandemic, they managed to produce this unbelievable result, one of the most intricately detailed houses I've ever been into, with marquetry on everything, and, you know, there's a lift in the house, and every floor of the house that was bronze handmade sculptures on the outside of the lift. I mean, it was very high budget, but and they did this during lockdown. It was incredible. And then finally lockdown lifted, project was finished, and I was there for the handover to the client. The client hadn't seen the result yet. The interior designer was there, and there were flowers, of course, and there was a dog shower in this house. The clients had dogs, and there was a marble dog shower where the dogs would come in from their walks, and they would be beautifully, primped and preened and dried. And the interior designer had created little brushes, engraved brushes for each dog with the name on it. And then we went out to the garden, and there was a bronze sculpture of the client's dog commissioned by the interior designer. Right. And the client's wife just burst into tears with delight. I mean, the whole thing was so curated and so exceptional. The big reveal at the end, and culmination of an incredible project. And I just thought that was awesome. I mean, look, that's an extreme example, of course. But
yeah, but I think that's what we're all chasing for, right. That experience, right? Right? It's being able to evoke an emotion in a client that they didn't ask for, weren't expecting, but will never forget because it was a gift to them.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely that.
Amazing.
And I think things, picking up on the theme there, I think things will change. I mean, what we're seeing is, just in very technical terms, is now technology is having quite an impact. So that when designers and architects we're working with, and indeed ourselves, are presenting work, it's done much more, not just with CGIs, but with 3D walkthroughs.
Yeah.
So you can enter your new home and see the curtains with that pattern, and oh no, I don't like that pattern. Boom, touch the button, it's changed to a different pattern, photorealistic. And now we give some of our clients Oculus Rift headsets at the outset of a project, and so every iteration of design they can experience wherever they are in the world. So I think that's changing, but I think the focus on speed of delivery and efficiency, it's probably the same in your world. Is definitely what I see coming, and it's changed over the last 5 years. Clients, I mean, the range of their choice has increased, and at the same time as their attention span has shrunk because there are many more demands on their time. And I think we as service providers have to be very cognizant of that. But equally, I think as AI shoulders its way more and more into our world, the human touch that we can offer, that you offer your clients, that we offer our clients, in every aspect of communication interface, is going to become even more important.
Yeah, well, I hope so, and I think that creating those moments that are unexpected, but offering kind of an intricate level of detail during the planning is that kind of magic, right? You give people, you plan for everything that they could possibly want, and then give them a little bit more. And it's nice to see that there are so many parallels in your world as there are in ours. So, Sandy, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure as always to speak to you. I think we could have probably gone on much longer.
I've enjoyed talking, and hopefully we can continue the conversation.
We absolutely will. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, Andrew. Enjoyed it. Bye-bye.
Thank you. That was very.
I do think there are really interesting parallels between what you do and what we do.
It is, like that story about the wife crying because of the brands we work for, all of these luxury brands who have got their clients coming in for a fashion show or a high jewelry collection or whatever it is, and they're after their loyalty. And we have clients that go from Hermes to Dior to Chanel high jewelry, and they can go anywhere. And our clients are always coming to us to create that that moment of surprise and delight that's going to stick in their memory. So they're going to come back. And that woman, when she goes for lunch with her friends, your client's wife, when she goes for lunch with her friends and tells everyone, oh my God, you'll never believe what insert here, or what Rebecca did, or whoever it is she's talking about, that's the magic. And actually, I think that's the magic way more than our clients saying, "Oh, the cars were all on there on time." And
exactly. Yes, it's really interesting that.
One of the stories we still tell is about the birthday party for a dog during a Cartier high jewelry show in 2019. The American guests got back to the Rosewood, and there was a birthday party for the dog with, you know, the butler and the maid and the general manager of the hotel.
That's amazing. So what, they came back and there was the dog being given.
Yeah,
they a bone or something.
Yeah, they walked in. Oh, I mean, no, it was way more than that. He was given a dog basket which was in the shape of Buckingham Palace or something like that. It was like it was all completely over the top, with bunting with the dog's face on it. And it was they did a little surprise party for the dog, but actually for the owner. But the owner was so obsessed with this dog that he was like, "Oh my God, this is like, you know."
That's tremendous. That's tremendous. But it's an interesting one. I don't need just 2 minutes. One of the challenges, which we were funny enough, we were talking about earlier today in the office, we've got some very big Asian clients at the moment, and amongst others, and we were thinking that they're flying in on their way to New York tomorrow, literally touching down for a meeting with us and then flying off. And we were thinking, well, God, we've only got 2 hours. What sort of experience can we give them in that time? Because we've got a hardcore meeting to fit into those 2 hours, as well as everything else. And look, the simple thing is, the wife loves whiskey, collects whiskey, and one of the team who she's working with very closely comes from Cumbria. And as it happens, the World Whiskey Awards were won by a really boutique Cumbrian whiskey house, which is next to my colleague's house in the country. And so we're getting her a super, pretty expensive bottle of this rare 20-year-old blah, blah, blah. But then I said to the team, look, watch out, our relationship, unlike perhaps yours, Andrew, when you're having a client event, it's not one evening. Our relationships with these clients go on for 3 years. Yeah. So when we create an event or a moment, you're setting a benchmark. And you have to be very careful not next time to give them a cheap bottle of wine, or do you know what I mean? Or equally, to set your bar so high you can't afford to maintain it, and everything afterwards is a bit of a letdown.
Yeah, that's exactly it. How do you keep that going? How do you keep that magic going? Exactly. We always talk about, like, it doesn't need to be flying, it doesn't need to be unicorns and skyhooks. In fact, often it's kind of simple things that the whiskey, obviously she's a collector and this is very personal. Yeah. That makes so much sense. But actually giving them knowledge or access to a world that they wouldn't otherwise have access to. Yeah. And that could be something very highfalutin, but it could even just be, going to a florist, going to the flower market at Covent Garden, which they would never go to. I mean, New Covent Garden flower market isn't particularly nice, but but someone who's into it, they absolutely love it.